O'Reilly has been nice enough to sponsor a session at many of their other conferences called Presentation Aikido. And if anybody's been to it, you'll know that my enormous plate of bacon this morning, 7 cups of coffee, and my dispute with my razor that talks into my beard violates all of those things. So hopefully I can make it through like 80 slides in 14 minutes and talk to you about a career. So I've been doing web operations for 2 years, because that's when the term was coined. But before that, I think I've been doing systems administration and software engineering. And I see a lot of disputes about what it is to have a career. I see a lot of people jump from job to job and not really focus on what they're doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a career. So hi, I'm Theo, and I have a career in this stuff at OmniTI. I've been at OmniTI for 13 years. So what is a career? So a career is a pursuit, right? It's a willingness to mature, and it's patience, right? It's a journey. So you have to get into it, get on it, and walk the whole path. You look at blacksmiths, right? You don't take a school, you don't go to vocational school to do ironworking and come out and start your own company and be an expert, right? It takes 20 years, it takes 30 years to become truly an expert at what you're doing. So this is an example of what really isn't a career, right? Everybody has if you run Java or Erlang or whatever, you're going to have a job ad, and you say, I want an expert in Java. And you get an applicant, and it looks like, well, I learned that in school, and I had a class, and I graduated last year, so I've done a lot, and I'm an expert, right? Okay, that is bullshit, and everyone knows it, okay? To be truly excellent, you have to treat what you do as a craft. You have to become a craftsman. All right? And through experience, you learn discipline, and through patience, you achieve excellence. All right? This is not web operations. This is called life. All right? And you have to treat whatever you do as a career, and you have to, give it a try, right? So step one is to educate yourself. And this can be vocational school. This can be a bachelor's degree. It can be a master's degree. It can be a PhD. It can be, 7 years spent reading Hacker News and Google. Right? It's about consuming knowledge, and it's about being able to make educated decisions about whether that knowledge is good or bad. All right? Step 2 is what most of us are missing in this industry, because we start up a startup, and we go to a company, we take a long, hard run at it for 9 months, we try to flip it, we leave, we do something else. That's not really disciplined, right? Look at a martial artist who goes and practices every morning for 6 hours, and 30 years later consider themselves a master. That's discipline. All right, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but compare that with what you do now. Step 3, congratulations, you've all succeeded, you're here. Learn from and share with your peers. It is one of your best resources, and I would say through the course of your career, it's the only resource that will evolve with you. And step 4 is be patient, because experience takes a lot of time and a lot of mistakes. One always said experience is making good judgments. And you can only, gaining experience is making good judgments, but you can only gain experience through bad judgments. So this isn't really a talk about how to have a career. What I'd rather do is talk about motivating you to be better at what you do and helping, all of the efforts that you partake in. So a career in this stuff, what is this stuff? This stuff is web operations. But you might say, I do web deployment, I do development, I do UI design, I do usability systems engineering, I'm a sysadmin, I'm a network admin. That also is bullshit. And the reason is because the web changed everything, and the cloud made us realize it. And when I talk about the cloud, I'm not talking about Amazon's infrastructure as a service. I'm really talking about SaaS, software as a service. Web apps used to be brochureware. It wasn't software. It was information. Web apps are interactive now. Your site, whatever it is, whether it's a Twitter or an insurance site, it interacts with users and it provides them a service. You are running software on their behalf to provide them service. Your website, most likely, is SaaS. All right? Your product has millions of users. It has maybe tens of thousands of systems, maybe 1,000, maybe 100, maybe 10. And you launch features into your site every single day. You should be. All right? The reason you do that is because your product has one copy. It's the one copy that runs on your site to provide your users with information. And that one copy must evolve, right, to compete. and it has to perform, and it has to deliver. And all of that summed up together is that your one copy must operate. That's why you are all in web operations, whether you like it or not. So I want you to stop and think about your organization. Now back to me. Now think about your job. Now back to me. I am doing the job that your job could be. Consider a COO. We don't have those much in our field. A chief operations officer, chief operating officer, what do they really do, right? It's pretty straightforward. They're responsible for daily operations, right? You can think of someone in your organization that's actually responsible and accountable for all the daily operations, probably not the COO. I would say that over time, as technology becomes ubiquitous, that'll probably change. But what does it take, right? It takes DevOps, all right? And I'll say something right now, DevOps is bullshit, all right? And you might say that that's not fair. And I'll tell you, of course, life is also not fair. It's inconvenient. DevOps isn't wrong, all right? I think there's a slant to it, but it's incomplete. It's interpreted incorrectly, and it's far too isolated. What we really need is star ops, all right? And for those of you that don't like globs and like regular expressions, it's .star. And if you really want DevOps, then I'll give you DevOps because only you understand it, all right? So everyone in your organization needs operational mentality. You need to think about your software running, not your software working, not your software meeting specs, but your software running and delivering user expectations, right? You have to deliver on expectations. So your job is to build systems that operate. And your job probably includes this stuff: JavaScript, PHP, HTML, CSS, maybe some C, C++, some database work. Likely, it requires a good understanding of things like TCP/IP and HTTP and new things like WebSockets and stuff like that, right? You need to know all of this stuff. And in the past, you have ops job. And ops job is things like packaging and deployment, resource planning and monitoring, provisioning, all of this stuff, root cause analysis. And these things actually have a really logical separation, right? And this is why most enterprises actually separate these two roles. It requires a tremendous amount of expertise to be on the top half. And that expertise isn't as tactical as the bottom half. That's too bad. So the problem is that there is no magic operations pixie dust. It doesn't just work. And people say the cloud works. That's also bullshit. Provisioning virtual systems has been fast, cheap, and easy, right? Ever since systems became virtual. Virtualization was the game changer, right? It wasn't really the cloud. The idea that I can provision 1,000 machines tomorrow just means I can pay a big bill, right? The idea that I can provision a machine in 1 minute, just one of them, is pretty amazing. That's pretty cool. Like a development environment, I can spin up 8 machines. I can do that without the cloud. I can do that on an old piece of hardware. It's great. There's a confusion that this is operations job. Provisioning. Provisioning in the past, if you ran a big organization, it never took more than 10 minutes to get a server up online, right? That was not the problem. The upside is that managing risk and liability is also simple, fast, and painless if you skip it. And that's what operations does. So keep that in mind when you think, oh, I hate operations. Now that I use the cloud, I can be up in 5 minutes, right? You didn't do your homework. You didn't do your math. You weren't diligent. So let's use an analogy that I think will resonate with everyone, right? Analogy here is security, because this has been beaten into us. Security is not a feature, right? It's not a deliverable on a project plan. It's not phase 2, right? Security is a state of mind. It's a mentality, all right? It's a state of being. You have to incorporate security into everything that you do to have a secure product at the end of the day. And I think that everyone sort of understands that now, okay? Operations is no different. You have to treat everything that you do as an operational requirement. So now back to your job. Your job looks like that. It doesn't look like that anymore. For a SaaS, it looks like this. Right? You're responsible for all of that. And that just happened. You're now on call. Right? To be responsible to run a system, you have to be accountable. You have to be on call. If you deploy code and it breaks at 3 a.m., you should be responsible for that. This is the most painful part. And if you have an operational mentality towards developing software, this is actually not painful, right? The problem is that a lot of software engineers build software that's really not operable. And the reason that you have bastard operators from hell is because they're on the lower half of that, right? If you look back and you split it, oops, just one back. There we go. If you split it there, your job is to produce stuff that doesn't need to operate. Just needs to match specifications, right? So when it breaks, it's some other schmuck's job to fix it. And they're angry about it because you didn't design your software to be introspected when it was running. You didn't design it to be operated, right? So in my opinion, when you do this, it changes everything. Now you're required to run your own software, and you're responsible to operate it. You'll make better software. So rule 1 of software engineering, and any engineering, is what you build will break, right? And you can build operational software. And in order to do that, you must have operational thinking, okay? So you start by turning the tables. This whole DevOps thing has been about putting more dev into ops. These ops guys don't know what they're doing. They do this really slow manual process of provisioning systems. Let's do it as code. Let's do this infrastructure, right? And you've got these ops guys, and the reason they're resistant is they're like, damn, man, I've run your code. That shit breaks at 3 a.m., and it wakes me up. Last thing I want to do is have that happen at 10 a.m. when I'm trying to provision something, right? And the problem is that the first step was skipped, which was about putting more ops into dev. Have an operational mentality for software. Be able to introspect it while it's running. Be able to see how it works. Be able to debug it in production, because that's where things actually break. So back to your organization, right? You have a CIO and a CTO, and honestly, they probably have a title that's very similar to COO, right? They're responsible for making these things work, okay? Titles don't matter. Chief Operating Officer, Chief Information Officer, Chief Technical Officer. I like Chief Make It Fucking Run Officer, right? So someone has to make these things run and make them run better, and that someone is you, right? You have the ability to do that. And this mentality is the beginning of your career in web operations. And if you're not in web operations, this is your beginning of a career in anything. So that's it. Thank you very much. Enjoy Velocity.